The morning mist clung to the Ardennes forest like a shroud. April 27th, 1944, 7:30 in the morning. The ancient spruce trees stood silent, their branches heavy with moisture, their bark dark against the grey light filtering through the canopy. Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Lindemann pressed his eye to the scope of his Karabiner 98. 42 years old, 30 years hunting the forests of Germany. 23 confirmed kills in this war alone. He was not a man who missed. The crosshairs settled on a massive pine tree 400 meters distant. He had watched that position for 17 minutes. Something moved there, he was certain. The pattern of shadows had shifted, once, then again. His finger tightened on the trigger, breath held, heart rate slowed. The rifle barked. The report echoed through the forest, then died. Through the scope, he saw bark explode from the tree. Dead center, a perfect shot. But no body fell. Lindemann's eyes narrowed. He worked the bolt, chambered another round, scanned left, scanned right. Nothing. "Was ist das?" he whispered. "What is this?" A voice answered from behind him, so close he could feel the breath on his neck. Bewegungslos, kein Laut. Motionless, no sound. The cold steel of a bayonet pressed against his throat. Not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to send the message. Wilhelm Lindemann, 42 years old, 30 years hunting the Black Forest, had never been caught. Until now. The voice spoke again, quiet, almost gentle, in German with an American accent. "Langsam die Hände heben, keine plötzlichen Bewegungen." Slowly raise your hands, no sudden movements. How? Lindemann's mind raced. The forest floor behind him was carpeted with dry leaves and brittle twigs. No one could approach without sound. No one. But someone had. Someone who smelled like earth, who moved like wind, who had become part of the forest itself. The voice switched to English. "Turn around, slowly." Lindemann began to turn, his professional curiosity overwhelming even his shock. He needed to see what manner of soldier had defeated him. The words on the mission briefing were simple. Clear routes through the Ardennes forest for artillery transport. Intelligence estimates, minimal enemy presence, standard engineering work. The 555th Engineer Battalion had done this 100 times before. Sergeant Elijah Thorne sat in the back of the transport truck, watching the Belgian countryside roll past. 34 years old, 6'3", 210 pounds of muscle, built from 15 years felling trees in the Louisiana pine forests. His hands were scarred from axe handles and saw blades. His face was weathered from years of sun and wind. His eyes held the quiet watchfulness of a man who had spent more time with trees than people. Next to him, Corporal David Munro checked his rifle for the third time. Munro was 28, former railroad worker from Georgia, solid build, reliable hands, the kind of man you wanted beside you when things went wrong. His dark skin was a shade lighter than Thorne's. His eyes showed the wariness of a man who had learned early that the world was not fair. "You feel that?" Thorne asked quietly. Munro looked up. "Feel what?" "The forest. It is too quiet." Private First Class Silas Garrett laughed from across the truck bed. 24 years old, carpenter from Chicago. Good with his hands but young. Still thought war was something you could predict. Still thought training manuals told the whole truth. "It is a forest, Sarge. It is supposed to be quiet." Thorne did not respond. He watched the tree line, the ancient spruces, the dense undergrowth, the way the morning mist moved between the trunks. In Louisiana, the forests spoke to those who knew how to listen. The birds, the small animals, the insects, they told you everything you needed to know. This forest was holding its breath. Lieutenant Nathaniel Whitmore climbed into the truck bed. 26 years old, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, engineering degree, commissioned officer. White skin, pale from years in classrooms rather than sun, but unlike most white officers Thorne had served under, Whitmore actually listened, actually learned, actually treated his black soldiers like men with knowledge worth hearing. "Thorne," Whitmore said, "you are on point when we reach the sector. Brooks says you know forests better than anyone in the battalion." "Yes, sir." "Something wrong?" Thorn met the lieutenant's eyes, held them, let him see the concern. "Birds are not singing, sir. No animal movement in the underbrush. No insect sounds. Something has disturbed this forest recently. Something big, something that scared everything else into hiding." Whitmore frowned. He pulled out the intelligence report, read it again. The paper crinkled in his hands. Report says minimal enemy presence, light patrols, nothing significant. "Reports can be wrong, sir." "Yes," Whitmore said slowly, "they can." The trucks rolled to a stop at the designated clearing. 12 men climbed out. 7 white officers, 5 black enlisted men. The segregated United States Army in all its complicated glory, separate but unequal, divided but forced to work together. But in this moment, in this forest, rank and race mattered less than the mission, less than survival. Whitmore spread a map across the hood of the lead truck. The paper was marked with red lines, blue circles, black X marks. "We need a viable route from this clearing to the crossroads, 7 kilometers northeast. Ground must support 105mm howitzers and transport vehicles. Thorn, you and Garrett scout ahead. Check the terrain. Look for obstacles. Monroe, you are on soil assessment. Check if the ground can handle the weight. Questions?" Thorn shouldered his rifle. M1 Garand, standard issue. He checked his canteen, 3/4 full. Adjusted his pack. Everything quiet, everything ready, everything ordinary. Except the forest. The forest was not ordinary. "Stay alert, sir," he said. "This forest does not feel right." They moved into the tree line at 0900 hours, April 24th, 1944. The morning was cold, 42 degrees. The mist had not yet burned off. Visibility was poor, maybe 60 meters in the dense undergrowth. Thorn led. Garrett followed 3 meters back, standard spacing. But Thorn moved differently than Garrett. The young carpenter crashed through the forest like most soldiers did, breaking twigs, scuffing leaves, making noise with every step, boot heels hitting hard, equipment rattling. Thorn moved like water, each step placed deliberately, weight distributed across the whole foot. No snapped branches, no rustled leaves. His body seemed to flow around obstacles rather than push through them. After 15 years in the Louisiana timber camps, he knew how to walk in a forest without leaving a trace, without disturbing the rhythm. 15 years. He had started at 19, after his grandfather died, after the old man had taught him everything the Choctaw knew about the woods, everything passed down through generations, through centuries, through millennia. The memory rose unbidden, clear as yesterday though it was 16 years past. 1928. Thorn was 12 years old, small for his age, skinny, all knees and elbows. His grandfather, John Silent Hawk, took him into the Louisiana pine forest on a cold November morning. The old man was 72 then, face weathered like old leather, hands gnarled like tree roots. But his eyes were sharp, clear, missing nothing. "Listen," the old man said. His voice was quiet but carried. "What do you hear?" Young Elijah listened. Really listened, not just hearing but paying attention. Birds, wind, creek running over rocks. "Good. Now, what do you not hear?" The boy frowned, thought hard. How could you hear something that was not there? I do not understand, grandfather." Silent Hawk smiled. His face creased into 1,000 wrinkles, but his eyes remained sharp. "The forest is always speaking, boy. But sometimes what it does not say is more important than what it does. When the birds stop singing, when the small animals hide, when the insects go quiet, the forest is telling you, danger is here." "What kind of danger?" "Predator, storm, fire, man. The forest does not care what kind. It only warns. It only says, be careful, be aware, be ready." The old man knelt. His knees popped. He scooped up red clay from the creek bank, rich, heavy, the color of dried blood. Mixed it with charcoal from last night's fire. Added pine resin that stuck to his fingers. A handful of decomposed leaves, brown and crumbling, Your skin is dark, boy. Good skin, strong skin. But in the forest you are still too pale. You still smell like soap and cooking grease. You still shine with oil from your mother's table. The deer sees you. The wolf sees you. The man sees you. He smeared the mixture on young Elijah's face, down his arms, across his hands. The mud was cool, sticky, smelled like earth and decay and living things. The forest has its own colors, its own smells. When you wear the forest's skin, it accepts you. You become invisible, not because you hide, but because you belong. Silent Hawk stood, walked 20 paces into the pine grove, his buckskin clothes blending with the bark, turned back, stood perfectly still. Now, find me. Young Elijah searched. His grandfather was right there, 20 paces away, wearing the mud mixture, standing in plain sight. But the boy's eyes could not find him. He saw a stump, a shadow, a trick of the light through the pine branches. A pattern of bark, but not a man, not his grandfather. His eyes passed over the figure again and again, refusing to register it as human. "I cannot see you," the boy admitted, frustration in his voice. Silent Hawk stepped forward, just one step, suddenly visible again. The movement broke the illusion, broke the spell. "The deer sees what it expects to see," he said. "The wolf sees what it expects to see, and the man sees what he expects to see. They look for shapes, patterns, colors they recognize. When you look like part of the forest, their eyes pass over you. You are invisible in plain sight. Not magic, not spirits, just understanding how eyes work, how brains work." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. The grip was strong, steady. "Our people learned this long before the white man came with his guns and his forts. 10,000 years we lived in these forests. 10,000 years we learned. We survived by being part of the land, not separate from it, not fighting against it. Remember this, Elijah. The forest teaches, but only to those who listen." That lesson had stayed with Thorn through 15 years of timber work, through cutting trees that had stood for centuries, through learning every bird call, every animal track, every shift of wind and weather in the Louisiana forests, through becoming a man who could walk through the woods for hours without disturbing a single creature. And now, in this Belgian forest, 7,000 miles from home, that lesson was screaming at him. Something was wrong. Thorn raised his fist, the signal to halt. Garrett froze behind him. Credit to the young man. He had learned to obey instantly. 30 meters ahead, a clearing opened in the dense spruce forest. Natural, nothing unusual about it, just a gap in the canopy where an old tree had fallen years ago. But Thorn's eyes caught something, a pattern in the tree branches around the clearing. Too regular, too perfect. Nature did not work in straight lines. He knelt, studied the ground. The soil was disturbed. Boot prints, many of them, recent, maybe 2 days old, but someone had tried to hide them, covered them with fallen leaves, smoothed them out. Professional work. "Garrett," he whispered, "do not move." "What is it, Sarge?" "Stay exactly where you—" The shot cracked through the forest like a whip, sharp, loud, echoing. The bullet struck the tree 3 centimeters from Garrett's head. Bark exploded. Splinters flew. The young carpenter threw himself to the ground. Instinct, training, pure survival. "Sniper!" he yelled, voice high with adrenaline. Thorn was already moving, not away from the shot, toward the nearest cover. A fallen log, moss-covered, rotting, but solid enough. 2 meters away. He covered the distance in 1 second, dropped behind it, pulled Garrett down beside him. The forest went silent again, waiting, watching. 17 minutes passed. Neither man moved, barely breathed. The cold seeped into their bodies. The damp ground soaked through their uniforms. Garrett's breathing was fast, panicked. Thorn could hear his heart hammering. "Slow your breathing," Thorn whispered. "In through nose, out through mouth. Calm." Garrett obeyed. Gradually his breathing slowed, his heart rate dropped. Finally, Thorn heard the whistle. Lieutenant Whitmore's signal, Assembly point. All clear for now. They crawled backward, slowly, keeping the log between them and the shot's origin. 200 meters back to the rally point. It took 20 minutes. Thorne would not let Garrett rush, would not let fear make them careless. The rest of the team had taken cover in a shallow ravine, natural depression in the ground, good concealment. Whitmore crouched behind a boulder, studying the forest through binoculars. His hands were steady, but his face was tight. "Single shooter?" he asked when Thorne arrived. "No, sir," Thorne said. He was certain. "That is what they want us to think. But I saw signs of multiple positions, boot prints, modified vegetation. This is not minimal enemy presence. This is a prepared defensive network, professional work." Whitmore lowered the binoculars. His face had gone pale. Intelligence was wrong. "Yes, sir. Very wrong. How many do you estimate?" Thorne closed his eyes, thought about what he had seen, the pattern of the branches, the boot prints, the careful concealment, the choice of firing position. This was not amateur work. "At least 20 positions, sir. Maybe 30. This is professional work. Snipers, experienced hunters, probably their best men. They have been here for days, maybe weeks. They know every inch of this forest." Monroe swore quietly. Garrett's face had gone pale. The other men shifted nervously. The realization was sinking in. They had walked into a trap, a carefully prepared killing ground. Whitmore pulled out his radio. "Called back to Colonel Brennan at battalion headquarters." Static crackled. "Actual, this is Echo 2. We have contact. Multiple sniper positions. Professional concealment. Request permission to withdraw and await infantry support." More static. Then Brennan's voice, crackling through, distorted but clear. "Echo 2. Negative on withdrawal. That route is priority 1 for artillery movement. We need it cleared within 48 hours. Can you hold position?" Whitmore looked at his men. 12 total, armed with rifles and basic equipment, against an unknown number of entrenched snipers who knew every inch of this forest, who had prepared positions, who had the advantage. "Sir, an infantry assault would take heavy casualties," he said into the radio. "These positions are expertly concealed. We are talking about significant losses. 20 men minimum, maybe 50. More static. Then a different voice. Sergeant Major Isaiah Brooks, 42 years old, former construction foreman from Philadelphia. The highest-ranking black enlisted man in the battalion. A voice that commanded respect. "Lieutenant Whitmore, this is Brooks. Put Thorne on." Whitmore handed the radio to Thorne. "Sergeant," Brooks said, "you grew up in forests. You know how to move in them. Is there another way? Some way to neutralize this threat without a frontal assault?" Thorne looked at the dense spruce canopy, at the undergrowth, at the silent, watchful trees. His mind flashed back to Louisiana, to his grandfather, to 15 years of moving through timber camps without a sound, to deer that never knew he was there until he touched them, to bears that walked past him at arm's length. "Yes, Sergeant Major," he said slowly, "there might be." "Explain." "These snipers are using standard military camouflage, ghillie suits, face paint, modern equipment. It is good, very good, but it is not perfect. They are trained to hide from soldiers, from military tactics, from what they expect, not from hunters, not from the old ways." "Go on." "My grandfather taught me techniques that are older than any military. Choctaw methods, forest camouflage, not hiding from the forest, becoming part of it. If I can get close enough without being detected, I can neutralize these positions without firing a shot." Silence on the radio. Thorne could hear the conversation happening on the other end. Muffled voices, debate, argument. In 1944, the idea of a black enlisted man leading an operation was almost unthinkable. The army was segregated. Black soldiers were given the worst jobs, the most dangerous work, but never leadership, never trust. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Finally, Brooks spoke again. "You are talking about capture, not kill." "Yes, Sergeant Major. My grandfather taught me that killing is always the last resort, that any fool can pull a trigger, but true skill is in control, in taking a man without harming him, in respecting your opponent even as you defeat him. That is the test of a real warrior. More silence, more muffled discussion. Then Colonel Brennan's voice came on the line. "Sergeant Thorne, this is highly irregular, against protocol, but the alternative is a frontal assault that could cost us 50 men or more. You have 48 hours. If you cannot neutralize the threat by then, we send in conventional forces. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "And Thorne? No heroics. If it cannot be done safely, you pull back. That is an order. Your life is worth more than pride." "Understood, sir." The radio went dead. Whitmore looked at Thorne with something between respect and disbelief. "You really think you can do this?" "I do not know, sir, but I know I can try." "You will need a team. You cannot do this alone." "5 men, sir, Monroe, Garrett, and 3 others who know how to move quietly. Men with hunting experience, men who understand forests." Monroe stepped forward immediately. "I am in." Garrett, still pale from his near-death experience, nodded. "Me too." Whitmore called over 3 more men. Private William Cross, 31 years old, former hunting guide from Mississippi, tall, lean, moved with the easy grace of a man who had spent his life in the woods, knew how to track, how to wait, how to think like prey and predator both. Private First Class Robert Kane, 29 years old, trapper from Arkansas, short, compact, hands scarred from setting snares and skinning animals, could move through brush without disturbing a single leaf, could read animal sign like other men read books. Private Harold Green, 26 years old, grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, tracking deer and bear since he was 8 years old, strong, patient, knew that hunting was 90% waiting and 10% action. 6 men total, all black, all from rural backgrounds, all with skills the military had never thought to value, skills that had been dismissed as primitive, backwards, unsophisticated, until now. "All right," Whitmore said. "What do you need?" Thorne looked at the forest, at the earth, at the creek running nearby, at the possibilities. "Time, sir, and mud." Night fell on the Ardennes forest. The temperature dropped to just above freezing, 34 degrees. The men huddled in their ravine, trying to stay warm without making fires that might give away their position. Their breath created small clouds in the cold air. Thorne sat apart from the others. In his hands he mixed the ingredients his grandfather had taught him. The recipe passed down through generations, through centuries. Red clay from the creek bank. Not any clay, not the light stuff near the surface, the heavy stuff, 3 feet down. The kind that held moisture and texture, the kind that did not crack when it dried. He worked it between his fingers until it was smooth, pliable, like wet leather, charcoal from their cold rations, ground fine between 2 rocks, mixed in slowly. This darkened the clay, broke up the shine, made it absorb light instead of reflecting it, made it invisible to eyes that looked for highlights and shadows. Pine resin from a scraped spruce tree, just enough to make the mixture sticky, to help it cling to skin and fabric, to seal in the moisture. Too much and it would be too sticky, too little and it would not hold. Decomposed leaves, crushed to powder between his palms, the smell of decay, of the forest floor, of things returning to earth. This was the secret ingredient, the thing that masked human scent, that made the forest accept you, that turned you from intruder into native. He mixed it all in his helmet, 60% clay, 20% charcoal, 15% resin, 5% leaf mold. The ratios mattered. His grandfather had taught him that. Too much clay and it cracked when dry. Too much charcoal and it rubbed off. Too much resin and it was too sticky. Too much leaf mold and it fell apart. Balance, proportion, precision. Monroe watched him work. "That is just mud," he said. "No," Thorne replied. "Mud is what children play in. This is camouflage, ancient camouflage, older than any nation, older than writing, older than cities." Garrett came over, looked at the mixture skeptically. The young carpenter from Chicago had never seen anything like this in training. "The Germans have proper camouflage, ghillie suits made in factories, military-grade face paint, chemical formulas. You really think mud is better?" Thorn met his eyes, held them. In Louisiana, I tracked a black bear for 6 hours, got within 3 meters of it. The bear never knew I was there. Not because I was lucky, not because I was quiet, because I was wearing this. The forest accepted me as part of itself. He held up the mixture. Military camouflage is designed to fool human eyes. Pattern disruption, color matching, visual confusion. This is designed to fool the forest itself, to make you part of it, to make everything in the forest accept you as belonging. There is a difference. Cross, the hunting guide from Mississippi, nodded slowly. He understood. He had seen similar things in his work. I have heard stories, Cross said, from the old-timers in Mississippi, about slaves who escaped using similar methods. They said the bloodhounds could not track them. The slave catchers walked right past them, looked right at them, and saw nothing. My grandfather's people used it for hunting, Thorn said, and for war. When they fought, they did not wear war paint to scare the enemy. They wore the forest, and they became invisible. Not magic, not spirits, just understanding. He began applying the mixture to his face. Slowly, carefully, not just smearing it on, applying it with purpose, breaking up the contours of his face, the lines that made it recognizable as human, the patterns that the brain automatically sought out. The human brain is programmed to recognize faces, he said as he worked. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, symmetry, pattern. When you break up those patterns, the brain does not know what it is looking at. It sees texture, shadow, but not a face, not a person. You become part of the background, part of the forest. He covered his hands, his neck, every exposed piece of skin. Then he moved to his uniform, rubbing the mixture into the fabric, dulling the olive drab color, adding texture, adding scent, making it part of the earth. The other 5 men watched, fascinated despite themselves. Then, one by one, they began applying the mixture themselves. Thorn moved among them, correcting technique, showing them how to blend the edges, how to avoid straight lines, how to think like the forest instead of like a soldier. The forest is not green, he said. That is what people think. Green trees, green grass. But real forests are brown, grey, black, red, 100 shades of earth. Green is only the surface. Underneath is earth, decay, life and death mixed together. When you wear these colors, you disappear. As the men worked, Thorn explained the philosophy, the lessons his grandfather had drilled into him through countless hours in the Louisiana woods. We are not hunters tonight, he said. We are part of the forest. We move when the wind moves. We freeze when the forest freezes. We breathe with the rhythm of the trees. And most important, he looked each man in the eye, made sure they understood. We do not kill unless we must. Our mission is to capture, to remove the threat without taking life. The Germans are soldiers like us, following orders like us, far from home like us. They deserve the respect of a clean capture, the dignity of survival. Monroe frowned. Sarge, they tried to kill Garrett today, shot at him. Would have killed him if you had not pulled him down. I know, but my grandfather taught me something important. Killing is easy. Any fool can pull a trigger. A child can kill with a gun, but true skill is in control, in taking a man without harming him, in being so good that violence is not necessary. That is the test of a real warrior. Garrett spoke up. What if they do not want to be captured? What if they fight back? Then we use the minimum force necessary. But remember, surprise is our greatest weapon. If we do this right, they will never know we are there until it is too late to resist, until they feel the knife at their throat and realize they are already beaten. The men nodded. Thorn could see doubt in some of their eyes, especially the younger ones. They had been trained to think of the enemy as targets, as problems to eliminate, as things to be destroyed. But Thorn's way was different, harder. It required more discipline, more control, more skill. It required becoming something other than a soldier. By midnight, all 6 men were covered, head to toe. In the darkness, they were nearly invisible, even to each other. When they stood against the tree trunks, they vanished, became texture, shadow, part of the forest. Lieutenant Whitmore came to inspect them. He carried a flashlight, shone it directly at Thorn from 5 meters away. "My God," Whitmore breathed. "I can barely see you. I know you are there. I am looking right at you, but my eyes do not want to register you as a person." "That is the idea, sir." "And you are confident this will work in daylight?" "It worked for 10,000 years, sir. It will work tomorrow." Whitmore nodded slowly. He handed Thorn a detailed map, updated intelligence from aerial reconnaissance. "Intelligence has updated the sniper positions based on today's contact. We count at least 7 confirmed locations, probably more. This one," he pointed to a marking on the map. "This is where the shot came from today. 2-man position, elevated, probably in a tree stand, standard sniper-spotter configuration." Thorn studied the map. His mind calculated distances, approaches, wind direction, cover and concealment, likely patrol routes. "We will start there," he said. "Dawn, when the light is poorest. That is when they will be watching the obvious approaches. They will not expect an attack from within the forest itself, from behind their own lines." "What do you need from me?" "Stay in position here, sir. Monitor radio. If anything goes wrong, we will signal. But do not come looking for us. Movement will give away your position. And if we fail, you need to be alive to call in the infantry." "Understood." Whitmore paused, looked at Thorn directly. "Thorn, this is the most unusual operation I have ever authorized. If it works..." "It will work, sir." "How can you be so sure?" Thorn looked at the forest, at the dark shapes of the trees, at the mist rising from the cold ground, at the world his grandfather had taught him to see. "Because the forest has already accepted us, sir. We are ghosts now, and ghosts do not fail." The team moved out at 0400 hours, April 25th, the darkest part of the night. 2 hours before dawn, the forest was black. Visibility was near zero. They moved in single file, Thorn leading, Monroe second, then Garrett, Cross, Kane, and Green bringing up the rear. Spacing was 3 meters, close enough to maintain visual contact in the darkness, far enough to avoid bunching up if they hit trouble. But this was not normal movement. This was what Thorn's grandfather had called ghost walking. Each step took 5 seconds, sometimes 10, sometimes 20 if the ground was particularly treacherous. Foot lifted slowly, muscles tensing gradually. Weight shifted so smoothly it was imperceptible. Toe placed first, testing the ground, feeling for twigs, for dry leaves, for anything that might make sound. Then the weight transferred, smoothly, like water flowing, like wind moving through branches. The rear foot lifted, the process repeated. It took them 40 minutes to cover 200 meters. Most soldiers could run that distance in 90 seconds, could march it in 3 minutes. But most soldiers made noise, left tracks, disturbed the environment, announced their presence to everything with ears. Thorn's team left nothing. No broken twigs, no scuffed leaves, no disturbed soil. They flowed through the forest like smoke, like morning mist, like things that existed between reality and dream. As dawn began to break, they reached the position Whitmore had marked. The 2-man sniper team that had shot at Garrett yesterday. Thorn raised his fist, the signal to halt. The team froze, became part of the landscape, indistinguishable from stumps and shadows. He studied the area, the trees, the undergrowth, the sight lines. His eyes, trained by 15 years in Louisiana forests, saw what others could not. Saw patterns, disruptions, things that did not quite fit. There, 15 meters up a massive spruce, a platform, carefully constructed from local branches, nearly invisible against the tree trunk, designed to blend, to disappear. 2 men would be up there, watching the approach routes, expecting targets from the west. But Thorn was coming from the east, from inside their perimeter, from where no threat should come. He signaled to Monroe and Kane. "You two, circle left, wait for my signal." Then to Cross and Green. "You two, right side, same." Garrett stayed with Thorn. The team split, each pair moving with the same glacial slowness, the same ghost-like silence, taking their time, making no mistakes. Thorne and Garrett approached the base of the tree. 10 meters, then 8, then 5, then 2. From above, voices, quiet, speaking German, young voices, bored voices. Men who had been on watch too long. Siehst du etwas? See anything? Nein, nichts, wie immer. No, nothing, like always. The voices were young, tired. They had been watching empty forest for days, probably. They were not alert, not expecting trouble. The routine had made them complacent. Thorne looked up. Through the branches he could make out shapes. 2 men, one with a scoped rifle, one with binoculars. Standard sniper spotter team, textbook configuration. He signaled to Garrett. Stay here, keep watch. If anything goes wrong, signal the others. Then he began to climb. Climbing a tree while covered in mud camouflage, while making no sound, while carrying a rifle and pack, while wearing boots not designed for climbing. This was not something the army taught, not something in any manual. But Thorne had climbed thousands of trees in Louisiana, marking timber for cutting, checking growth rates, rescuing equipment caught in branches. His hands knew what to do. His body remembered. He moved up the trunk like a shadow, using branches that would not creak, testing each one before committing his weight, distributing his mass, moving slowly enough that the tree did not shift or sway. 5 meters, 10, 12. The 2 Germans were 3 meters above him now, still talking quietly, still watching the wrong direction, still expecting threats from the west where American forces were supposed to be. Thorne reached the level of the platform. He could see them clearly now. Both young, maybe 20 years old. One had his eye pressed to the rifle scope. The other scanned with binoculars. Neither looked down. Why would they? Threats came from a distance, not from below. Thorne's hand moved to his bayonet, slowly, quietly. The blade slid free without a whisper of sound. The steel was cold, heavy, real. He positioned himself on a branch directly beneath the platform, 2 meters away, hidden in the foliage, covered in mud that made him invisible, waiting, patient, still. In Louisiana, his grandfather had taught him patience, how to wait for hours without moving, how to become so still that animals forgot you were there, how to slow your breathing until your heartbeat was barely perceptible. True hunting is not about speed, Silent Hawk had said. It is about timing. You wait for the perfect moment. You watch. You learn the rhythm. And when it comes, when the moment arrives, you move like lightning. The moment came. The spotter lowered his binoculars, rubbed his eyes, tired from hours of staring. The sniper took his eye from the scope, stretched his neck, rolled his shoulders. Both men were distracted for exactly 3 seconds. Thorne moved. He swung up onto the platform in one fluid motion. His left hand clamped over the spotter's mouth. His right brought the bayonet to the man's throat. Not cutting, just touching. Just enough pressure to send the message. Still, he whispered in German. No sound. The spotter's eyes went wide with terror. His body went rigid. He tried to scream, but the hand over his mouth was like iron. The sniper spun around, reached for his pistol, but Garrett was already there. Climbing up the other side of the tree, his own bayonet pressed against the sniper's back. "Do not move," Garrett said in English. "Hands up, slowly." Both Germans obeyed. Their weapons were taken, their hands bound with cord, mouths gagged. The entire operation took 45 seconds. Not a single sound carried beyond the platform. Thorne studied the 2 prisoners. Boys, really. Scared, shaking, tears running down the spotter's face. But alive, unharmed, hearts still beating. He removed the spotter's gag. "You are prisoner now," he said in broken German. "We do not hurt you. You are safe. No harm. Understand?" The spotter nodded. His voice shook when he spoke. "Danke, danke, thank you. I thought you would kill us." "No killing," Thorne said. "Only capture. You fought well. Now war is over for you." Fall and Garrett lowered the prisoners to the ground using rope. Monroe and Kane secured them, hands tied but not too tight, allowed to sit comfortably, given water. Cross and Green had already found the Germans' equipment cache, maps, ammunition, food, radio. The radio was still on, tuned to a German frequency. Thorn listened. A voice crackled through, speaking German, calling for a position check. Posten 7 melden Sie sich. Position 7, report. Silence. The two prisoners looked at each other. Position 7 was not responding. Another voice came on, older, calm, authority in every word. Alle Posten erhöhte Wachsamkeit. Etwas stimmt nicht. All positions, increased vigilance. Something is wrong. Thorn examined the captured position more carefully now. In the growing daylight, he could see the details. The camouflage was excellent, professional, better than most American positions he had seen. The branches woven together naturally, the moss and lichen undisturbed, the firing lanes carefully cleared. But something caught his eye. The pattern of bent branches, the arrangement of leaf cover, the way the position integrated with natural features. This was not just good military training. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Our people were not the only ones who learned from the forest boy. The old Europeans knew these ways too, before their cities, before their books, before they forgot. They listened to the earth. The Romani, the old Germanic tribes, the forest peoples who lived in the woods for thousands of years before Rome, before Christianity, before civilization made them forget. Thorn touched one of the bent saplings. The angle, the method. This was not standard German military training. This was indigenous knowledge, ancient knowledge. Someone in the German command understood the old ways, had learned from European forest peoples, perhaps Romani travelers, perhaps descendants of old Germanic tribes, perhaps even older traditions passed down through generations. "Lieutenant," Thorn said quietly into his radio, "we have a problem." Whitmore's voice crackled back. "What kind of problem?" Their commander knows forests, really knows them, not from books, not from military training, from the land itself, from ancient knowledge. "You can tell that from camouflage?" "Yes, sir. This—" Thorn gestured at the position, though Whitmore could not see it. "This is ancient wisdom, same as mine. Different forest, different teachers, different people, but same knowledge, same understanding." Monroe, standing nearby, understood immediately. "You are saying we are up against someone like you? Someone with the same skills?" "Not like me exactly," Thorn said quietly, "but someone who learned the same lessons from their grandfather, their forest, their people, someone who speaks the same language." This changed everything. The German snipers were not just trained soldiers following a manual. They were led by someone who spoke the forest's language, who understood the old ways, who might be just as skilled as Thorn himself. "Keep moving," Whitmore ordered. 46 hours left. You have 2 prisoners, 28 to go." Thorn looked at his team, at the 2 prisoners, bound but safe, at the forest around them, slowly coming alive with morning light. Birds beginning to sing, insects starting to chirp, life returning. "One down," he said quietly. 29 to go. The team cached the prisoners in a secure ravine under Green's watch. Then 5 men moved deeper into the forest, deeper into the German defensive network, deeper into the domain of a commander who understood the old ways. By 0800 hours, the sun had burned through the morning mist. Visibility improved to over 100 meters in places. The forest came alive. Bird calls echoed through the canopy. Red squirrels chattered warnings. A light breeze moved through the spruce branches, creating a subtle whisper, normal forest sounds, sounds that masked the ghosts moving through them. Thorn's team had cached the first 2 prisoners in a secure ravine, guarded by Green. 5 men remained now, moving deeper into the German defensive network, each step calculated, each movement deliberate. The second position was 400 meters northeast. According to the captured maps, this was a single-man hide, ground level, covering the eastern approach, standard defensive placement. Thorn led the approach. Monroe, Garrett, Kane and Cross followed in a staggered line, each man invisible against the forest floor, each man moving with the rhythm of wind and branch, like water finding its path downhill. They reached the position in 90 minutes, 400 meters, 90 minutes, a pace that would have frustrated any normal infantry unit. Most infantry units moved at 4 kilometers per hour on roads, 2 kilometers per hour in forest. Thorn's team moved at 0.26 kilometers per hour, slower than a glacier, slower than growing grass, but infinitely more silent. The hide was masterful. Built into the base of a fallen tree, the tree had come down years ago. Moss and ferns had grown over it. The entrance was a narrow slot, barely visible even from 3 meters away, hidden in shadow, hidden in decay. Thorn studied it from 20 meters out. No movement, no sound. But the Germans were disciplined. They would not move unnecessarily, would not make noise, would sit in absolute stillness for hours if required. He signaled. Monroe and Kane, flank left. Cross and Garrett, flank right. Surround it. Cover all exits. The team moved into position, glacially slow, taking 30 minutes to move 20 meters, surrounding the hide from 4 directions, creating an invisible net. Thorn waited, watching, listening, learning the rhythm of this place, the pattern of bird calls, the movement of branches, the flow of air. Inside the hide, a man coughed, quiet, suppressed, but audible, human, real. Thorn moved. He approached the entrance from the side, not head-on where the sniper would be watching, from the blind spot, the place where eyes did not look because nothing should be there. 2 meters from the entrance, he could see inside. Narrow slit, darkness within. One man, 30 years old perhaps, lying prone, rifle pointed toward the western approach, completely focused on his sector, doing his job. Thorn reached the entrance. His shadow fell across the opening for a fraction of a second. The German sensed something, some primal instinct, the hair on his neck standing up. He started to turn. Thorn's hand clamped over his mouth. The bayonet touched his neck. Cold steel against warm skin. "Still," Thorn whispered in German. "You are safe. Do not fight. This does not have to hurt." The German's body went rigid. His eyes showed shock, terror, incomprehension. How? How had anyone approached his position undetected? He had heard nothing, seen nothing, sensed nothing, until it was too late. Thorn disarmed him, removed the rifle, the pistol, the combat knife, bound his hands with cord, not too tight, just secure, pulled him gently from the hide. The German stared at Thorn's camouflage in the daylight, at the mud that made him part of the earth, at the patterns that broke up his human shape, at the smell of forest floor and decay. "Was bist du?" the German whispered. "What are you?" "A woodsman," Thorn replied, "like you, but from a different forest." The German nodded slowly, understanding beginning to dawn, respect in his eyes despite the circumstances, despite the fear. "Wo hast du das gelernt?" "Where did you learn this?" "From my grandfather, Choctaw Nation, Louisiana, America." "Indigenous," the German said in accented English. His voice was shaking but clear. "Our commander. He learned from Romani foresters. Old ways, very old ways, from before." "What is his name?" "Oberstleutnant Lindemann. Wilhelm Lindemann. He is legend. Best hunter in all Black Forest. 30 years experience. He will find you. He always finds what he hunts." Thorn filed that information away. Lindemann. A name now. A real opponent. Someone who understood the old ways. Someone worthy of respect. "You will see him soon," the German said. "He knows something hunts his men. He will find you. And when he does, this game ends." "Perhaps," Thorn said calmly. "Or perhaps we will find him first." They secured the prisoner with the others. 3 now, 27 to go. By noon, they had taken 4 more positions, 6 total. Each capture followed the same pattern: silent approach, invisible presence, sudden appearance, clean capture. No casualties, no shots fired. No violence beyond the minimum necessary. The prisoners were secured in the ravine under Green's watch. 6 men bound but comfortable, water provided, rations shared, medical attention given for minor injuries. One man had a twisted ankle, Another had blisters from poor-fitting boots. This was not how war was supposed to be. War was supposed to be brutal, violent, kill or be killed. But this was how Thorn fought. This was how his grandfather had taught him. "The true warrior controls without killing," Silent Hawk had said. "Any fool can end a life, but to take a man's freedom while preserving his life, that requires skill, that requires mastery, that requires being better than your enemy while still honoring him." In his command bunker, 3 kilometers away, Wilhelm Lindemann spread 6 position maps across his table. 6 positions, 6 teams, all silent since dawn, all gone. Not destroyed. Destroyed positions left evidence: bodies, blood, burn marks, shell casings, the smell of cordite, the aftermath of violence. These positions had simply vanished, like morning mist when the sun rises. His communication officer, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, stood nervously beside him. Young, 24, good soldier but inexperienced. This was his first real combat command. "Herr Oberstleutnant, perhaps they retreated? Fell back to secondary positions without authorization? Without orders?" Lindemann shook his head. The idea was absurd. "My men do not retreat without orders. I trained them myself, every one of them. They know their duty." He studied the map, the pattern of silent positions. Northeast sector, advancing from the American lines in a clear pattern, but not in a line, not in a sweep, not like a military advance, in a spiral, like a hunter circling prey, like a wolf pack closing in, like something that understood terrain and movement and the psychology of the hunted. "This is not a military operation," Lindemann said slowly, the realization settling over him like cold water. "This is a hunt." "Sir?" "One man, perhaps a small team, but one mind directing it, one hunter, moving through our perimeter like—" He paused, searched for the word. "Like a ghost." Schmidt looked skeptical. "Sir, with respect, one man cannot take 6 positions, not without detection, not without some kind of alert. It is impossible." Lindemann walked to the bunker entrance, looked out at the forest. 30 years he had hunted in forests. Different forests now, Belgian spruce instead of German pine. But woods spoke the same language everywhere. The birds, the animals, the wind, the silence. They all told stories to those who knew how to listen. And right now, the forest was telling him something was very wrong. "You are thinking like a soldier, Schmidt. This is not a soldier. This is a hunter. And hunters move differently. They think differently. They do not follow rules. They follow instinct, understanding, knowledge passed down through generations." He called over his radio operator, a corporal named Hartmann, experienced, reliable. "Contact all remaining positions, codeword Waldgeist, forest ghost, full defensive posture, no one moves alone, all positions maintain constant communication, every 15 minutes, check-ins. If any position fails to respond, all nearby positions go to maximum alert." The orders went out. 24 positions remained, 24 teams now on highest alert, weapons loaded, safeties off, eyes scanning, ears listening. But Lindemann knew it was already too late. The ghost was already inside his perimeter, already hunting, already taking his men one by one. And ghosts did not stop hunting until the prey was taken. April 25th, 1400 hours, 10 hours since the first capture. Thorn's team had taken 9 positions, 15 prisoners secured, 15 German soldiers who would live to see their homes again, who would survive this war, who would return to wives and mothers and children. But fatigue was setting in. Not physical fatigue. They were all strong men, fit, trained. The slow movement was not exhausting in that way, but mental fatigue, the constant tension, the absolute focus required for every step, every breath, every movement. The knowledge that one mistake meant death, one sound meant bullets, one moment of carelessness meant failure. Monroe was showing it worst. At 28, he was strong, reliable, steady, but not trained for this level of sustained stealth operations, not accustomed to this kind of pressure. "Sarge," Monroe whispered. His voice was tight. "I need to rest. Just 10 minutes. My mind is going fuzzy." Thorn nodded. He understood. Pushed too hard, the men would make mistakes. Better to rest now than fail later. He found a secure position, a cluster of dense undergrowth with good concealment and sight lines in all directions. Natural fortress, defendable if needed. The team settled in, ate cold rations, drank water, checked their camouflage. The mud mixture was holding up well, only minor reapplication needed on hands and face where sweat had diluted it. Garrett spoke quietly. 9 down, 21 to go. Can we keep this pace? Can we do this for another 38 hours? We must, Thorne said. There was no other option. We have 34 hours left now. If we do not finish, they send in conventional forces. People die. Many people. Americans and Germans both. Cross, the hunting guide from Mississippi, studied the map carefully. His finger traced the remaining positions. The positions are getting denser, he observed, closer together, more overlapping fields of fire. It will be harder to approach without detection. They are adapting. Yes, Thorne agreed. Lindemann is reacting. He knows we are here now. He knows his men are being taken. He is tightening his defenses, making it harder, testing us.
What do we do? Thorne thought.
His grandfather's voice echoed in memory, from a hunt when Thorne was 16. They had tracked a wild boar for 3 days through Louisiana swamps. The boar had learned they were following, had changed its patterns, become unpredictable. The prey is smartest when it knows it is hunted, Silent Hawk had said. It changes patterns, uses different paths, becomes unpredictable, dangerous. But this is also when it makes mistakes, because fear makes even smart prey do foolish things. Fear breaks patterns, creates opportunities. We make Lindemann afraid, Thorne said. We increase the pressure. We make him feel the walls closing in. Hunted prey makes mistakes, and when he makes a mistake, we take him. How do we make him afraid? Kane asked. The trapper understood psychology, understood fear, understood how animals thought when pressured. We accelerate. Take 3 positions in the next 2 hours, fast. Show him that his defenses cannot stop us. That tightening the perimeter does not help. Make him feel helpless. Make him understand that we are inevitable. Monroe frowned. Sarge, we are exhausted. Moving faster means more risk, more chance of mistakes. I know, but this is the time to push, before we get too tired to move at all, before our focus breaks completely. We use the last of our strength now. Push through. Finish strong. The team looked at each other, fear in some eyes, exhaustion in all eyes, but also determination, trust. They had come this far, 9 positions taken without a casualty. They could finish. All right, Monroe said. We push. Position 10 fell in 40 minutes. A 2-man team at the base of a ridge. Natural fighting position. Good cover. Excellent sight lines. But Thorne and Kane approached from uphill, from above, from where gravity said threats should not come. Gravity made people think threats came from below, from eye level, from where soldiers trained to look, not from above, not from tree level. The 2 Germans never looked up, never saw the shapes moving through the canopy, never heard the footsteps on soft moss. Thorne dropped from a branch, landed silent behind the first German, hand over mouth, bayonet at throat, subdued in 3 seconds. Kane took the second German, same method, same speed, same efficiency. 2 more prisoners, 17 total. Position 11 fell in 30 minutes. Single sniper in a tree stand, elevated position, wide field of view, standard setup. But Cross climbed an adjacent tree, moved branch to branch like a squirrel, like something that lived in trees. Approached from the side where the sniper was not watching, appeared behind the German like a ghost in the canopy. 1 hand over mouth, 1 knife at neck. Still, no fight. You live. The German surrendered. 18 prisoners. Position 12 was harder. This was a 3-man position. The Germans were on high alert, 1 watching each direction, rotating every 5 minutes, overlapping coverage, no blind spots, no gaps. Thorne studied them for 20 minutes, looking for the pattern, the weakness. Every defense had one, every system had a flaw. There, when they rotated, there was a 2-second gap. when the eastern watcher turned to face north, and the northern watcher turned to face west, and the western watcher turned to face south. 2 seconds when the eastern approach was uncovered, when all three were turning, when all three were in motion. 2 seconds, 10 meters, 5 men. We hit them during rotation, Thorne whispered. All of us, simultaneous. 2 seconds to cross 10 meters and take 3 men. That is impossible, Garrett said. No, Thorne replied. That is necessary. They waited, watching the rotation pattern, timing it. The Germans rotated every 5 minutes like clockwork. German efficiency, German precision, normally an advantage, but now a predictability to exploit, a pattern to break. The next rotation approached. Thorne counted down with hand signals, 5 fingers, 4, 3, 2, 1. The eastern watcher turned north. Thorne, Monroe, Garrett, Kane, and Cross exploded forward, not running, that would make noise, but moving faster than they had moved all day, half running, half gliding, using every muscle, every ounce of skill. 10 meters in 2 seconds. They hit the position as the Germans completed their rotation. 5 Americans appearing from nowhere, from empty forest that had been empty 1 second ago. Bayonets at throats, hands clamping mouths, bodies overwhelming surprised defenders. The 3 Germans froze in shock, eyes wide, minds unable to process. How? From where? Impossible. Still, Thorne said in German, no sound. You are safe. Do not fight. The capture took 30 seconds. 3 more prisoners, 21 total. But this time, something had changed. One of the Germans, in the moment before being gagged, managed to key his radio. A burst of static, a second of open channel, then silence. But the damage was done. In his bunker, Lindemann heard it. Just a burst, just static. But he knew immediately. He keyed his own radio. Posten 12, melden Sie sich. Position 12, report. Silence. Posten 12, position 12, report immediately. Silence. Lindemann's face hardened, his jaw clenched, his eyes went cold. They are accelerating, he said to Schmidt. They are pushing, trying to take as many positions as possible before nightfall, before we can react, before we can adapt. What do we do, Herr Oberstleutnant? Lindemann studied his map. 12 positions silent, 18 remaining. The Americans were advancing in a clear pattern now, spiraling inward, toward the center, toward his command post, toward him. We contract the perimeter, Lindemann said. His voice was calm, but his mind was racing. Pull all remaining positions back to within 500 meters of this bunker. Concentrated defense. Interlocking fields of fire. Let them come to us, and when they do, we will be ready. Sir, that abandons the outer sectors, gives them free access to the approach routes. The outer sectors are already lost, Lindemann said grimly. 12 positions gone. 12 teams taken without a shot fired. I do not know how, but I know we cannot stop it by spreading thin. Now we make our stand here, concentrated, together, and when they come, we will see them. We will stop them. He paused, looked at the forest outside his bunker, at the trees that hid so many secrets. Whoever you are, Ghost, he murmured in English, you are skilled, perhaps the most skilled I have faced in 30 years. But now you come to me, to my stronghold, and I have been preparing for this moment my entire life. April 25th, 1800 hours, 14 hours since first capture. Thorne's team had taken 15 positions, 30 prisoners secured in the ravine, but the cost was showing. The exhaustion was no longer just mental, it was physical now, bone deep, soul deep. Monroe's hands were shaking, constant tremors from adrenaline fatigue. Garrett's eyes were bloodshot from hours of hyper-focus. Kane had pulled a muscle in his left leg, moving too fast, pushing too hard. Cross was limping from an ankle he had twisted jumping from a tree, still functional, but in pain. Only Thorne seemed unchanged, still moving with the same fluid silence, still reading the forest with the same clarity, still focused like a laser on the mission. But inside, He was feeling it too. The weight, the pressure, the knowledge that 29 men's lives depended on him, that failure meant death for American soldiers in a frontal assault. "Sarge," Monroe said. His voice was rough. "We need to stop. Real rest. Not 10 minutes. Hours. We need sleep." Thorne looked at his team, saw the fatigue, the strain, the cracks forming. He had pushed them hard. Harder than they had ever been pushed. 2 hours, he said. We rest 2 hours, full rest. Sleep if you can, then we continue. 15 hours left, 15 positions. We can finish this. They found a secure position. A hollow in a hillside with good concealment. Natural cave-like formation. Cross and Kane took first watch. The others slept. Thorne sat against a tree. Not sleeping, thinking, planning, worrying. 15 positions down, 15 remaining. But the pattern had changed. The last 3 positions had been more alert, more prepared. The radio burst from position 12 had warned Lindemann. Now the German commander knew the ghost was real, knew the threat was accelerating. He would adapt, consolidate, make his final stand. And that stand would be the hardest fight of all. Thorne's mind drifted to his grandfather, to a lesson from long ago, after a particularly difficult hunt, a wounded bear that had fought back. That had nearly killed young Elijah before Silent Hawk intervened with his rifle. The most dangerous prey is wounded prey, his grandfather had said afterward. Cornered prey. When an animal knows it will die, it fights with everything it has. No fear, no hesitation, no holding back. Pure survival instinct. Pure desperation. "How do you fight that?" young Elijah had asked. His arm was bandaged where the bear had clawed him. "You do not fight it," Silent Hawk replied. "You respect it. You give it a path to escape, a way to survive without fighting. Most animals will take that path, because survival is stronger than pride. Life is stronger than honor." Thorne understood now. Lindemann was cornered prey. 15 positions lost, his defensive network collapsing, his men vanishing one by one. He would fight with everything he had, unless Thorne gave him another option, unless Thorne offered respect, offered a way to survive with honor intact, not surrender through defeat, but surrender through mutual recognition. Warrior to warrior, woodsman to woodsman, hunter to hunter. The question was, would Lindemann take that path? Or would pride demand he fight to the death? Thorne did not know, but he knew he had to try, because his grandfather had taught him that killing was always the last resort, even when the prey was dangerous, even when the prey was cornered, even when fighting seemed inevitable. True mastery was not in the kill, it was in the control. 2 hours later the team woke, stiff, sore, but rested enough to continue. The mental fog had lifted, the shaking had stopped. They were ready. 15 positions remain, Thorne said. They have pulled back, consolidated around Lindemann's command post, tighter perimeter, better mutual support, more difficult target. "Can we still take them?" Garrett asked. "Yes, but it will be different, harder. They are expecting us now. They know we are coming. The surprise is gone."
What is the plan?
Thorne looked at the darkening forest. Night was falling. His element, darkness and silence and the deep woods. "We move at midnight, when they are tired, when night vision is poorest, when fear is highest. We take the outer positions first, the ones on the new perimeter, silent, fast. Then we surround the command post itself." "And Lindemann?" "We offer him a choice, surrender with honor, or fight to the end. I believe he will choose honor. I believe he will choose life over pointless death." Monroe looked skeptical. "Sarge, with respect, this is war. They are Germans. They are not going to surrender just because we ask nicely." "No," Thorne agreed, "but they might surrender if we show them we could kill them, but choose not to. If we prove we respect them as warriors, if we give them the same dignity we would want, if we show them that honor lies in preserving life, not ending it." The team was quiet, processing this, understanding the deeper truth. Finally, Cross spoke, the Mississippi hunting guide, the man who understood the old ways. "Your grandfather taught you well, Sarge. This is not just about tactics. This is not just about winning, this is about humanity, about staying human even in war. Yes, Thorne said simply, that is exactly what it is about. Midnight, April 26, 30 hours since the operation began, 18 hours remaining. Thorne's team moved through the forest like shadows, 5 men, invisible, silent, deadly if necessary, but seeking capture, not death. The first of the consolidated positions fell in 30 minutes. 2-man team, alert, watching, but watching the wrong places. Thorne and Kane approached from opposite sides, synchronized, perfect timing, both arriving at the same instant. 2 bayonets, 2 throats, 2 whispered commands. Still, no sound. You live. 2 more prisoners, 32 total. The second position fell in 25 minutes. 3-man team, more difficult.
More eyes, more guns.
But the Germans were tired, frightened. They had heard the stories now, knew their comrades were disappearing. When Thorne appeared from the darkness like a demon from hell, they surrendered without resistance. Hands raised, weapons dropped. "Please," one said in English, "do not kill us." "We do not kill," Thorne replied. "We capture. You are safe now." 3 more prisoners, 35 total. The third position was different. As Thorne approached, he heard voices, arguing, in German, loud enough to carry. "Wir sollten uns ergeben." We should surrender. They are ghosts. We cannot fight ghosts. "Nein, der Oberstleutnant wird kämpfen. Wir kämpfen mit ihm." No, the Oberstleutnant will fight. We fight with him. "Aber gegen was? Sie verschwinden einfach. Einer nach dem anderen." But against what? We just disappear, one after another. "Dann sterben wir mit Ehre." Then we die with honor. Thorne listened. The younger voice wanted to surrender, wanted to live.
The older voice wanted to fight, wanted honor.
Both were terrified. He made a decision. Instead of attacking from stealth, he stood up, walked into their position openly. No hiding, no tricks, just walked in like he owned the forest. Both Germans spun, raised rifles, fingers on triggers. Thorne raised his empty hands, showed he was unarmed in that moment, showed he was choosing peace. "I am not here to kill you," he said in German. "I am here to offer you life." The older German, perhaps 35, kept his rifle aimed at Thorne's chest. His hands were steady, but his eyes showed fear. "One more step, and I shoot." "Then shoot," Thorne said calmly. "But know that my men surround this position. If you shoot me, they will take you anyway, and I am the only one offering you the choice. I am the only one showing you mercy." "What choice?" "Surrender now, with honor. You fought well. You did your duty. Your families will be proud. Now you choose life over pointless death."
Or fight. Die here, for nothing. Your choice.
The younger German, maybe 20, lowered his rifle slowly. "I choose life," he said quietly. His voice cracked with emotion. The older German looked at his companion, at Thorne, at the forest around them, where other Americans waited invisible. Slowly, he lowered his rifle. "You are not a normal soldier," he said. "No," Thorne agreed, "I am not." "Who are you?" "I am a ghost, but also a man, and I choose to let you live." By 0400 hours, April 26th, Thorne had taken 12 more positions, 27 total, 54 prisoners secured, 3 positions remained, plus Lindemann's command bunker. The team was beyond exhaustion, running on pure willpower, pure determination, pure refusal to quit. Monroe could barely walk. Kane's injured leg had swollen. Cross's ankle was twice its normal size. Garrett's eyes kept closing involuntarily. Microsleep. Dangerous. But they pushed on. "One more push," Thorne said.
His voice was hoarse.
3 positions, then Lindemann, then it is done. Position 28. 2 Germans, alert, focused, but tired like everyone else. The patrol spotted them. Just for a second, a shift of shadow that should not have shifted, a movement that broke the pattern. "Da! There!" The patrol fired. Garrett dove for cover. The shot missed by inches. but the sound carried through the forest like thunder. Every remaining German position went on full alert, weapons ready, fingers on triggers. The element of surprise was gone. Monroe took a bullet through his left thigh. Not fatal, not crippling, but painful, bleeding. He fell with a grunt. Thorne dragged him behind cover, applied pressure to the wound, stopped the bleeding, applied a field dressing. "Kane, Cross, get him back to the rally point. Garrett, with me. We finish this." "Sarge, you cannot take 3 positions with 2 men," Monroe gasped through the pain. "Watch me," Thorne said. He and Garrett moved fast now. No more slow stalking. The forest was awake, alarmed, hostile. Speed was survival. They hit position 28 hard. 2 Germans, focused on where the shots came from, expecting attack from that direction. Thorne came from behind, Garrett from the side. Both Germans secured in seconds. Neither saw them coming. 56 prisoners. Position 29. 3 Germans, ready, waiting, scared but determined. Thorne used a trick his grandfather taught him. He threw a rock 30 meters left, hard, loud. The Germans turned toward the sound, reflexive, automatic. Garrett hit them from the right. 3 men subdued before they could react, before they could process. 59 prisoners. Position 30, the last outer position. 4 Germans, the hardest yet. They had heard the shots, heard the commotion. They were ready. Thorne and Garrett approached from upwind. The Germans' own scent masked their approach. Their own fear blinded them. When they were 5 meters away, Thorne stood up, walked into the open, covered in mud, looking like a creature from nightmare. "Genug," he said. "Enough. This is over. 30 positions taken, 59 men captured, all alive, all safe. You fought well. Now it ends." The Germans stared at this mud-covered ghost who walked calmly into their position, who spoke German, who offered them life. 3 of them lowered their weapons, hands shaking, relief washing over their faces. The 4th, a sergeant perhaps 40 years old, kept his rifle raised, aimed at Thorne's chest. "9, he said. "I do not surrender to ghosts." He fired. The bullet hit Thorne's left shoulder, high, clean through. Thorne spun from the impact, fell. Garrett shot the German in the leg, non-lethal, but disabling. The man fell, screaming. The other 3 Germans dropped their weapons, raised their hands. "Medic!" one screamed in English. "Medic! Your man is shot! We surrender! We surrender!" Garrett was at Thorne's side immediately. "Sarge!" Thorne pushed himself up. Blood ran down his arm, warm, sticky, but the wound was clean, through and through, painful, but not deadly, not crippling. "I am fine," he said. "Secure them, all of them." "Sarge, you need medical attention." "After," Thorne said, "after we finish. 1 more position. Lindemann. We are too close to stop now." He stood, steadied himself, looked at the German who shot him. The man lay on the ground, clutching his leg wound, blood between his fingers. Thorne knelt beside him, applied a tourniquet, stopped the bleeding, bandaged the wound. "You did your duty," Thorne said in German. "No shame in that. You fought when others surrendered. That takes courage." The German looked at him with tears in his eyes. "Why did you not kill me? I shot you." "Because killing is easy," Thorne replied, "and I was taught to be better than easy." Dawn broke on April 27th. 30 German soldiers captured, 30 more about to join them. 1 American wounded, 1 German wounded, 0 killed. Thorne and Garrett approached the command bunker. The sun rose behind them. The forest came alive with morning light, birds singing, wind moving, life continuing. Inside the bunker, Wilhelm Lindemann heard the silence. No radio calls, no gunfire, no sounds of battle, nothing. 30 positions, all silent. His entire command, gone. Not destroyed, captured, by 1 man, or a small team. It did not matter which, the result was the same. He had lost. But he had lost to someone worthy, someone who understood forests, who moved like the old hunters, who fought with honor even when victory demanded ruthlessness. Lindemann walked to the bunker entrance, looked out at the forest, at the trees that had witnessed this impossible thing. Two figures emerged from the shadows, one tall, one shorter, both covered in mud, both walking with the confidence of men who had already won.
The tall one's left shoulder was dark with blood, fresh blood.
But he walked steadily, no weakness showing. "Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Lindemann," the tall one called in German. "I am Sergeant Elijah Thorne, United States Army. I have captured your entire command, 30 soldiers, all alive, all unharmed. 0 casualties except 1 wounded on each side. Minor wounds, survivable." Lindemann stepped into the open. 10 meters separated them, close enough to talk, far enough to react if needed. "How?" Lindemann asked simply. "How is this possible?" "My grandfather taught me. Choctaw Nation, Louisiana, America. The old ways. Ways older than armies, older than nations, older than war itself." Lindemann nodded slowly, understanding dawning, respect growing. "Indigenous wisdom. We Europeans have forgotten such things. Once we knew them. But cities made us forget. Books made us forget. Civilization made us forget." "Not all Europeans," Thorne said. "Your men used old techniques."
Romani, perhaps, or older, Germanic tribes, forest peoples. You know the forest. You speak its language.
"Not as well as you, it seems." Thorne took 3 steps forward. Slowly, non-threatening, hands visible, weapons slung. "This does not have to end in death, Herr Oberstleutnant. You fought with honor. Your men fought with honor, bravely, skillfully. Now I offer you the same honor. Surrender, join your men, live to see your home again, see your Black Forest again, see your family again. The war will end someday. You can go home." Lindemann looked at the American, at the blood on his shoulder, at the mud that made him part of the earth, at the eyes that held no hatred, only respect. "You were shot," Lindemann observed. "Yes, by one of your men, a sergeant, doing his duty, fighting when others surrendered, brave man. And yet you still offer peace." "Yes, because my grandfather taught me that killing is the last resort, that true mastery is in control, in respecting your opponent even as you defeat him, in honoring the warrior even when you take his freedom." Lindemann was quiet for a long moment. The forest was quiet. The world was quiet. Just 2 men, 2 hunters, 2 woodsmen, standing in morning light. Then he unholstered his pistol, held it by the barrel, extended it toward Thorne. "I surrender," he said formally, "with honor, to a worthy opponent, to a true hunter." Thorne took the pistol, held it respectfully. Behind Lindemann from the bunker, 10 more Germans emerged, hands raised, weapons left behind, surrendering to the ghost who had taken everything but given them their lives. The last position, captured without a shot fired. 40 German soldiers total, 1 American wounded, 1 German wounded, 0 killed. The operation was complete, April 27th, 0800 hours, 72 hours after the operation began. The forest was quiet again, the violence had passed, the hunting had ended. The birds sang their morning songs. The wind moved through the spruce branches with its eternal whisper. Life continued as it always had, as it always would. Lieutenant Nathaniel Whitmore stared at his after-action report, read it for the 5th time, could barely believe the words he had written, could barely comprehend what had just happened. Operation summary. Duration, 72 hours. Enemy captured, 40 combatants including commanding officer. Enemy KIA, 0. Friendly KIA, 0. Friendly WIA, 2. 1 GSW thigh, 1 GSW shoulder, both stable. German WIA, 1. GSW leg, stable. Method: indigenous camouflage and stealth capture techniques. Intelligence recovered, complete German defensive maps for Ardennes sector. Estimated Allied lives saved by intelligence, 500 to 1,000. He looked up at Sergeant Elijah Thorne. The sergeant sat on a medical crate. His left shoulder was bandaged, white gauze already showing spots of red.
A medic had cleaned and dressed the wound, through and through. No bone damage, no arterial involvement. Painful but not serious. He would recover fully. Exhaustion lined Thorne's face, deep grooves around his eyes, hollows in his cheeks. He had lost perhaps 10 pounds in 3 days, but his eyes were clear, calm, content. The eyes of a man who had done what he set out to do. "This is impossible," Whitmore said quietly. "Yet it happened, sir." 40 men, 40 professional snipers, the best Germany had, captured alive, by a team of 6. Well, 5 really, since Green was on guard duty most of the time. "We did what needed to be done, sir. Nothing more." Whitmore shook his head in wonder. "Sergeant Thorne, what you have accomplished here, I have no frame of reference for this, no precedent in military history, no comparison to anything I studied at MIT or in officer training. This rewrites everything we know about woodland operations." "It is not me, sir. It is my grandfather's wisdom. I am just the student who remembered the lessons." Colonel Richard Brennan arrived by jeep 30 minutes later, had to see for himself, had to verify that the impossible report was true. He walked through the rows of German prisoners, 40 men sitting peacefully under guard, unharmed except for one with a leg wound, fed, given water and medical attention. Some were smoking American cigarettes, gifted by their captors. Some were sleeping. Some were talking quietly among themselves. Not one of them looked angry. Most looked relieved, grateful. Some looked at Thorne with something approaching awe, something beyond respect, something closer to reverence. Brennan stopped in front of Lindemann. The German officer sat apart from his men, dignified despite circumstances, proud despite defeat. "You are the German commander." "Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Lindemann, sir. Bundeswehr, German Army." "How did this happen? How did my sergeant capture your entire command in 3 days?" Lindemann looked at Thorne, then back at Brennan. His face showed no shame, only respect. "Your sergeant is not an ordinary soldier, Colonel. He is something older, something we have forgotten how to be. He is a true hunter, a true woodsman, a master of the forest. He became part of the forest itself. He wore its skin, spoke its language, moved with its rhythm. And against that, military training means nothing. Technology means nothing. Modern weapons mean nothing." Brennan turned to Thorne, studied him, this black enlisted man who had done the impossible, who had achieved what entire infantry companies could not. "Is this true?" "I use techniques my grandfather taught me, sir. Choctaw methods passed down through generations. They worked." "Clearly." Brennan paused, chose his words carefully. "The intelligence you recovered from the command bunker, it is extraordinary. Maps of the entire German defensive network in this sector. Communication codes, tactical assessments, strength reports. This information will save hundreds of lives, perhaps thousands. It will change how we approach the Ardennes for months to come." "I am glad, sir. But that is not the most important thing you have accomplished here." Brennan gestured at the prisoners, at the 40 living men. "You have shown us a different way, a way to win without slaughter, without turning soldiers into killers, without losing our humanity in this war. That lesson may be worth more than any tactical advantage." He looked at Thorne directly, commander to soldier, but also man to man. "I am recommending you for immediate promotion to staff sergeant. Transfer to training division effective immediately. You will develop instruction protocols based on your methods. You will teach others what you know. This knowledge is too valuable to remain with one man." "Sir, I am just a lumberjack. I cut trees for a living. I do not train soldiers." "You will learn," Brennan said. His voice carried the weight of command, of necessity, because what you know needs to be preserved, shared, passed on. Just like your grandfather passed it to you, you will pass it to the next generation. That is your duty now. May 15th, 1944. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, United States. 3 weeks after the Ardennes operation. A team of military scientists studied Thorne's camouflage mixture,
analyzed its components with microscopes and chemical tests, tested its effectiveness against various detection methods with scientific rigor. Major Theodore Harrison led the research team, former physicist from Caltech, brilliant mind, skeptical by nature, believed only in what could be measured and quantified, had initially dismissed the reports from Belgium as exaggeration, propaganda, impossible claims, until he saw the results with his own eyes. He pointed to the mud-covered test subject standing 50 meters away in a wooded area on the testing range. The subject was a volunteer from the Rangers, young, fit, but otherwise ordinary. "I do not see him," Harrison admitted. His voice carried surprise, disbelief. "Visually, this is remarkably effective, but let us test other detection methods. Science will explain this." They brought in thermal cameras, new technology, cutting edge, designed to detect heat signatures invisible to the naked eye. The test subject showed 32% of normal heat signature, a reduction of 68%. The mud acted as insulation. The layer of earth between body heat and sensors created a thermal barrier. "Remarkable," Harrison murmured. He made notes, calculations. "The clay retains ambient temperature while the body heat dissipates through the porous structure. Brilliant. Accidental engineering." They brought in trained tracking dogs, German shepherds, the best the military had, dogs that could track a human scent for miles across varied terrain. The dogs had to approach within 5 meters before detection. Success rate, 6%. 94% failure rate. The dogs walked right past the test subject again and again, confused, frustrated. "Impossible," Harrison said, but the evidence was undeniable. Dogs can track human scent through rain, through streams, through miles of forest. How? "The decomposed organic matter masks human pheromones," Thorne explained from his observation position. "The resin seals it in. The scent of decay and earth overwhelms the scent of human. The forest accepts you as part of itself. The dogs smell forest, not man." Visual detection tests at various distances. Trained observers, binoculars, scopes, multiple trials. Standard military camouflage was detected at 40 meters average distance. Thorne's method was detected at 7 meters average distance, a reduction of 82%. Harrison wrote in his official report, "Subject camouflage represents unprecedented effectiveness in woodland concealment. Techniques are based on indigenous North American knowledge systems dating back several millennia. Method cannot be replicated through industrial production. Recommend immediate incorporation into specialized operations training through direct instruction." But there was a problem, a significant one that troubled Harrison's scientific mind. "This cannot be mass-produced," Harrison told Brennan in a private meeting. "The mixture requires natural materials that vary by location, by season, by forest type. Red clay from one region has different properties than red clay from another. Pine resin from spruce differs from pine resin from pine. Leaf composition changes by ecosystem. It cannot be standardized, cannot be packaged and distributed like rations or ammunition." "Then we teach the knowledge," Brennan replied. "Person to person, the old way." How knowledge was transmitted before writing, before schools, before bureaucracy. Through doing, through showing, through the ancient method of master and apprentice. That is inefficient, sir, slow, limited in scope. Perhaps, but it is the only way. And sometimes, Major, the old way is the best way. Sometimes efficiency is not the goal. Understanding is the goal. Over the next year, Elijah Thorne trained 340 soldiers, rangers, scouts, reconnaissance specialists, pathfinders, men who would operate behind enemy lines, who needed to be invisible, who needed to survive in hostile territory. He taught them the mixture: 60% clay, 20% charcoal, 15% resin, 5% leaf mold. The ratios were critical, had to be precise, but also had to be adapted to local materials. "This is not a recipe to memorize," he told each class. "This is a principle to understand. In Louisiana, I use red clay. In Germany, you might use gray clay. In the Pacific, you might use volcanic soil. The materials change, the principle remains the same. Become part of the forest, wear its skin, speak its language. But more than the mixture, he taught them philosophy, the deeper knowledge that made the technique work. You are not hiding from the forest, he explained in lecture after lecture. You are becoming part of it. There is a fundamental difference. Hiding is temporary, uncomfortable. You are always afraid of being discovered. You are always separate. But belonging is permanent, natural. The forest accepts you, and once accepted, you can move through it freely, without fear, without separation. Some students learned quickly, men from rural backgrounds, hunters, farmers, trappers, loggers, men who had grown up close to nature. They understood instinctively, had felt what Thorne described even if they had never articulated it. Others struggled. City boys, men who had never walked in a real forest before the army. For them it was harder, required unlearning everything modern society had taught them, required reconnecting with something primal, something ancient, something their ancestors knew but they had forgotten. But most succeeded, at least partially. Even a partial application of Thorne's techniques improved survival rates dramatically, cut detection rates in half, doubled mission success percentages. The methods spread, through word of mouth, through demonstration, through the simple fact that they worked, through soldiers teaching other soldiers, through the underground network that exists in every army despite official channels. By the end of the war in Europe, May 1945, hundreds of American soldiers were using variations of Thorne's camouflage, in the forests of Germany, in the mountains of Italy, in the hedgerows of France, in every theatre where trees grew and concealment mattered. How many lives were saved? Impossible to quantify, impossible to measure. But the reports came back, again and again. Successful reconnaissance missions, ambushes avoided, intelligence gathered without detection, men coming home who might otherwise have died. The Ghost's legacy was spreading far beyond one man, beyond one operation, becoming part of military doctrine, even if unofficially, even if unwritten, even if passed only through demonstration and practice. June 1946. Elijah Thorne returned to Louisiana. The war was over. Germany defeated, Japan defeated, the world at peace, at least for now. He stepped off the bus in the small town closest to the lumber camp where he had worked before the war. 20 miles from the nearest city, population 312. Nothing had changed in the town. The same dusty streets, the same wooden buildings, the same poverty that had defined his childhood, the same segregation that had shaped his life. But everything had changed. He had changed. Sarah was waiting at the bus stop, his wife, 28 years old now. They had been married 1 week before he shipped out. 1 week together. Then 2 years and 3 months apart. 2 years of letters, of hoping, of waiting, of wondering if he would return. She saw him step off the bus, saw the uniform, the stripes, the medals, the bronze star on his chest. She ran to him, wrapped her arms around him, cried into his chest, her whole body shaking. "You came back," she whispered. "You came back to me." "I promised I would. I keep my promises." "And the war? Is it really over?" "For me it is. For us it is. I am home now, home to stay." They held each other for a long time. The other passengers walked past. Some stared. A black man in uniform, with medals, holding a black woman in a small Louisiana town. In 1946, this was still dangerous, still provocative, still something that could get you hurt. But Thorne did not care. He had faced 30 German snipers. He had walked through killing grounds invisible. He could face small-town racism, could endure the stares, could survive the whispers. "What now?" Sarah asked when they finally separated. "What do we do now?" "I go back to work," Thorne said. "I am a lumberjack. I cut trees. That is what I know. That is what I am good at. That is what I want to do." But it was not that simple. Nothing ever was. The lumber camp had changed during the war. Mechanization had come. Chainsaws replacing handsaws, tractors replacing horses, trucks replacing wagons, technology replacing men. The foreman, a man named Jeffers, looked uncomfortable when Thorne showed up asking for his old job back. "Elijah, glad you made it back safe. Real glad. But times have changed. We do not need as many men as before. The machines do the work now. Faster, cheaper, more efficient." "I understand," Thorne said calmly. "I am not here for my old job anyway." "No?" "No. I am starting my own business. Forestry consultation. Teaching sustainable practices. Showing lumber companies how to work with the forest instead of against it. How to harvest without destroying. How to take what you need while leaving the forest healthy." Jeffers looked skeptical. His face showed doubt. Prejudice. The ingrained racism of the era. "Consultation? You mean you want to tell white men how to run their businesses? You think anyone is going to pay a Negro consultant?" "Those who want to learn will pay," Thorne replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "Those who understand that knowledge has no color, only value, only results." It was slow at first, painfully slow. Most lumber companies would not hire him, would not take advice from a black man, would not listen to his ideas, no matter his expertise, no matter his service, no matter his knowledge. But some did. The smaller operations, the struggling ones, the ones desperate enough to try anything, the ones willing to look past skin color to see skill. And they saw results. Thorne taught them to read the forest, to understand growth patterns, to harvest selectively instead of clear-cutting, to leave seed trees, to work with natural regeneration, to think in decades instead of quarters, to build sustainable operations that would last generations instead of quick profits that would destroy the land. The companies that listened saw better yields, healthier forests, long-term profitability instead of short-term exploitation. Woods that renewed themselves, trees that grew back stronger. Word spread, slowly, but it spread. By 1950, Thorne had a small but steady business. He employed 6 men, all black, all from rural backgrounds, all learning to see the forest as he did, as his grandfather had, as his grandfather's grandfather had. Building something, creating something, preserving something ancient in a modern world. November 1953, 9 years after the Ardennes. A letter arrived at Thorne's small office. Postmarked, Stuttgart, West Germany. Foreign stamps, careful handwriting. Thorne opened it with trembling hands. He had wondered for years, hoped, but never expected this. The letter was in English, careful English, precise, formal. "Dear Sergeant Thorne, I hope this letter finds you well and at peace in your Louisiana forests. The prisoner camps were difficult, 3 years, but I survived. I kept my sanity by remembering our conversation, by thinking about the forest, by holding on to the knowledge you showed me. I returned home to Germany in 1947. My black forest was still there, damaged by war but alive, growing, renewing itself as forests do. I write to tell you that I have kept my promise. The promise I made in the Ardennes when you taught me your camouflage mixture. I teach your method to the forest rangers and game wardens of Germany. They call it Thorne's Earth now. Your name is known in the Black Forest, spoken with respect. But more than the technique, I teach them philosophy. That the forest is not our enemy. That we must become part of it, not conquer it. That true skill lies in control without destruction. In preserving life, not ending it. Your grandfather's wisdom now lives in German forests. A strange thing. Enemies in war. Brothers in the forest. But perhaps that is how it should be. Perhaps the forest speaks one language to all who truly listen. If you ever wish to visit Germany, you would be welcomed with the highest honor. My home is your home. The Black Forest awaits you. Your friend and fellow woodsman, Wilhelm Lindemann. Thorne read the letter 3 times, then showed it to Sarah. His hands were shaking slightly, emotion welling up inside him. He kept his word, Sarah said softly. After all these years, after everything, he kept his word. Yes, he is a man of honor. I knew that from the moment I met him. Will you write back? Yes, And someday, when we have saved enough money, we will visit. I would like to see the Black Forest. I would like to walk in those ancient woods. I would like to meet him again as a friend instead of as an enemy. They did visit. 15 years later, 1968. Thorne was 52. Lindemann was 66. Both men grey now. Both men marked by time and war and life. They walked the Black Forest together for 2 weeks, comparing techniques, sharing stories, learning from each other. 2 old hunters, 2 old woodsmen, finding common ground in ancient knowledge. "You were right that day in the Ardennes," Lindemann said one evening, as they sat by a campfire deep in the woods. "You said knowledge belongs to the forest, not to nations, not to people. You were right. The forest has been teaching for millennia. We are just students who listen. My grandfather said it. I only remembered, only believed. But you understood, and you had the courage to teach an enemy, to give a gift when you could have kept it secret, to show mercy when you could have shown none. That takes more than skill. That takes wisdom, character, humanity." Thorne stared into the flames, watched the patterns dance and shift, thought about the journey that had brought him here, from Louisiana swamps to Belgian forests to German mountains, all connected by ancient knowledge, all linked by understanding that transcended nationality, transcended race, transcended everything except the earth itself. "The war is over," he said quietly. "We are not enemies anymore. We are only men trying to understand the forest, only students trying to learn the lessons." "May we always be so," Lindemann replied. "May the forest always unite us, instead of nations dividing us." Before Thorne left Germany, they collaborated on a manuscript, typed on an old typewriter in Lindemann's forest cottage, titled simply, "Forest Wisdom, Universal Principles." It was never published commercially, too technical for general readers, too philosophical for academics, too specific for mass appeal. But copies circulated. Among forest rangers, among military trainers, among hunters and conservationists, among people who understood that some knowledge was too important to be kept secret, too valuable to be owned, too essential to be copyrighted. It became an underground classic, photocopied, passed hand to hand, studied in secret, used by people who needed to understand forests, who needed to move invisibly, who needed to survive in wild places. And slowly, very slowly, the knowledge spread beyond those who had learned directly from Thorne, beyond those who had walked in forests with Lindemann, into the wider world, into the next generation. 1972, 28 years after the Ardennes, the United States Army released a classified training manual, distribution limited, need-to-know basis only, FM 21-76, Special Operations Camouflage Techniques. Chapter 7 was titled Natural Environment Integration. It described, in technical military language, the methods Elijah Thorne had learned from his Choctaw grandfather, the mixture ratios, the application techniques, the philosophy of becoming part of the environment instead of hiding from it. The manual credited indigenous American knowledge systems as documented by field personnel during World War II operations in the European theatre. It did not name Thorne, could not name him. The Ardennes operation remained partially classified. The details were still secret. The specifics were still protected. But those who knew, knew. Those who had been there, those who had learned directly, those who understood the source. The manual was used to train Army Rangers, Special Forces, Delta Force, SEALs when they operated in forested environments, long-range reconnaissance patrols, every elite unit that needed to be invisible. And they succeeded, mission after mission, year after year, using mud that was ancient in its wisdom, using techniques that Thorne's grandfather had learned from his grandfather, that his grandfather had learned from his grandfather, back through generations, back through centuries, back through millennia. The chain of knowledge, unbroken, passed from Silent Hawk to Elijah to the United States military to hundreds of soldiers to thousands, spreading, growing, living. 1987. Thorne was 71 years old, retired from his forestry business, living in a small house on the edge of the Louisiana pine forest, the same forest where his grandfather had taught him, the same trees, or their children, or their children's children. Sarah had passed 3 years earlier. Cancer. He had held her hand at the end, told her he loved her, promised to see her again someday, in whatever came next, in whatever existed beyond this life. Now he lived alone, but not lonely. His children visited, his grandchildren visited.
3 boys, ages 8, 10 and 12, full of energy, full of questions, full of life. One autumn afternoon, Thorne took them into the forest, to the same creek where Silent Hawk had first shown him the camouflage mixture 60 years earlier. The water still ran clear. The clay bank still held its red earth. The forest still spoke to those who listened. "Boys," he said, "I want to teach you something important, something my grandfather taught me, something you will teach your grandchildren someday, something that must never be lost." He knelt by the creek. His knees popped. His back ached. Old age was not kind, but his hands still knew what to do, still remembered the movements. He gathered clay, charcoal, resin, leaf mold, mixed them in the old proportions, 60, 20, 15, 5. The ratios passed down through time, through blood, through teaching and learning and practicing. The boys watched with wide eyes. This was magic to them, mystery, something from another world. "This is older than America," Thorne explained as he worked. "Older than any country, older than cities, older than writing. This is how our people survived for thousands of years, how they hunted, how they lived in harmony with the forest." He mixed it slowly, carefully, teaching through demonstration, through showing rather than telling. "The most important thing I learned in my life," he said, "is that we are not separate from nature. We are part of it. When we remember that, when we stop fighting against the forest and start becoming part of it, then we become strong. Then we become wise. Then we become connected to something bigger than ourselves." He applied the mixture to the oldest boy's face. The child giggled at the cold mud, then fell silent as he saw himself in the reflection of the creek water, transformed, changed, made into something other than human, something part of the forest. "Now, try to find me." Thorne walked 20 paces into the pine grove, covered himself with the mixture, stood against a tree trunk, became texture, became shadow, became invisible. The boys searched, called his name, walked within arm's reach, looked right at him. Their eyes passed over him again and again, refusing to see, unable to process. Finally, he moved, just one step, revealed himself, the spell broken. "Grandpa, you were invisible. You disappeared. How did you do that?" "Not invisible," Thorne corrected gently, "just part of the forest. There is a difference. Invisible means magic. Part of the forest means understanding, knowing, belonging." He taught them that afternoon, the techniques, the philosophy, the respect for nature that underpinned everything, the knowledge that his grandfather had given him, that he was now passing to them. "Will we ever need this, Grandpa?" The middle.